Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Hidizs MS5, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. Before we get into the Honest Audiophile impressions of the Hidizs MS5, I want to give this disclaimer. Hidizs provided the MS5 free of charge in exchange for an Honest Audiophile impressions video. Hidizs has not paid me or given compensation other than providing the MS5 for review. Hidizs has not asked me to put a positive review or asked me to phrase things in a certain way. They have not provided any thoughts and opinions on the MS5. All thoughts and opinions of the Hidizs MS5 have come from my very own noggin, and they are my own impressions. Hidizs has provided a 5% discount to Honest Audiophile viewers. It's very kind of them, and I appreciate them for doing that. If you use the link down in the description and then use the discount code HonestAudiophile5OFF, you will receive 5% off of the purchase of the MS5. The Honest Audiophile channel will receive 3% from each purchase. Again, I want to reiterate, Hidizs has not influenced this opinion of the MS5 at all. All thoughts and opinions are my own. With all that being said, here are the Honest Audiophile impressions of the Hidizs MS5. The Hidizs MS5 will set you back $400 from the bank account. Currently, it is on pre-sale for $379. The Hidizs MS5 comes in this very nice black box. Get a little picture, some branding, some information, some specs, and oh look, a high-res sticker. It's gotta sound good. All right, so let's take the lid off here. When you're greeted, you'd have your IEMs here, and then down below it says choose the world you hear, and that's referencing the tuning filters. Removing that, you get a carrying case and then some tips and tuning filters. Let's look at the carrying case first. Pretty standard fare. Nice leather case. It says Hidizs there. It's kind of hard to see on camera. Opening it up, you get a little bit of a pocket, which is really snug. And then a nice big bag to put your IEMs in. You also get some paperwork. And then you get your tips and tuning filters. 3 sets of silicones, different ones. You get balanced, vocal, and bass. No foam tips included. Filters are included on this little metal plate, which is a nice touch. Red is for bass, silver is for treble, and then the pre-installed rose gold is balanced. Changing to the bass filter or the red filter will convert the MS5 into a V-shaped sound signature. You'll get big bombastic bass. The mids will be a little bit more recessed, and the upper mids and lower treble will be a little bit more muted, and overall the whole presentation up top will be a little bit more mellow and chill. And overall the whole presentation, even though the mids are a little bit more recessed and scooped, it'll be a little bit more lush and just a little bit more bombastic. Going to the treble filter, the bass will kind of stay the same as it will on the balanced one. And then the mids have a little bit more body and aren't as recessed as they are in the bass filter. And the upper mids and treble regions are very much elevated. And it is too much for my ears. They become a little bit too forward, a little too intense, and they just have a little too much zing to it. The balance filter kind of is in between the bass and the treble, and it does a nice job of balancing everything out, and it just sounds more cohesive and overall has a more balanced approach to things, hence the word and namesake, balanced filter. The tips are also kind of working the same way as the filters. Bass tips will enhance the bass and kind of make things a little bit warmer. And then the treble ones are more airy and more spacious, but it has a lot of zing to it. You do have a bigger sound stage. And then the balanced tips will be more balanced and cohesive. So I used the balanced tips and the balanced filter. The MS5 itself. Now this is a very interesting build of an IEM. Really cool looking. I did confirm with Hidizs that it is a sealed shell, even though it looks like it would be open back. They did say it's just for aesthetics and for the look and design of it. And it's just an artistic flair to make it look like it has venting, but it actually is a sealed shell. Rather thick, kind of heavy, and you got a nice big long nozzle with a decent angle. Very, very subtle wing and pretty much a flat back. Overall, it's well built and looks really cool, but it is heavy and it is large. The cable. The cable is also very well built, looks nice, but it is heavy. And it also has very aggressive ear hooks. And it also has a very interesting design. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it protrudes out right there. And it's kind of pointed, and it's a little bit, it can hit in the wrong spot, and it'll prick you. And then this whole part right here where the connection goes into the shell for the 2-pin is solid, and it's just a little bit on the thick side. Cable is rather thick going into the shell. And then the split is rather large and it's heavy. It does have a nice cinch though, it stays in place. And then from the split down, you have a very nice, tightly woven cable that's very thick. Well controlled, behaves very well, but it's just very thick. And then you have a heavy termination going at 3.5. Overall, I like the build of the cable. It's just thick and heavy, and it causes problems when in my ears. So putting them in my ears, first the shell is rather hard to kind of get in place. It doesn't fit my ear very well. It's a little bit big. It's about borderline being too large. And then you have to loop the cable, and the ear hook just really snugs in and it starts to pull. And I find that the MS5 kind of dips down and starts putting pressure. And that causes that little protrusion that I talked about with the connection to kind of dig in right here on the side of my face. Same thing happens on the other ear. And I just find that they're not the most comfortable. Now, if I take my glasses off and I wear them, they're a little bit more comfortable, but they're still causing issues with the hanging down. And it just is, they're a heavy shell and a heavy cable, and it just makes it to be kind of uncomfortable. I can wear them for about 45 minutes to an hour before they really start to ache and say, get out. Give me a break. I can't have these in my ears for a while. There were a couple times when I was listening to them, when I listened for longer sessions over an hour, where it was painful to me, and at one point I didn't even want to put an IEM in my ear. I had to give them about a day's rest just to kind of let things to get back to normal. Outside noises are isolated out pretty well, probably somewhere in about the 60% range. Good enough for around the house, around the neighborhood, in light office duty. Public transit and louder environments, they probably wouldn't do so well, but for the average listening, they should do okay. I find that the MS5 is fairly easy to drive, being 5.8 ohms of impedance, 104 decibels of sensitivity. They're not super picky when it comes to amplification. Most dongles were able to drive them, and most DAPs and desktops sounded good with it. they are a little bit picky on source. So if you have a source that is a little bit on the warm side and really pushes forward the mids or the bass, they can sound a little bit bloated and a little bit too thick, and it'll just kind of slow them down a little bit. But overall, I had no issues with any of my gear pushing the MS5s. They're very easy to drive, just a little bit source picky. Before we get into the sonic impressions of the Hidizs MS5, I want to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide in these tough economic times. I know that finances aren't easy on a monthly and one-time basis, so thank you very much for your gifts to the channel. Is much appreciated. If you're interested in supporting the channel, all funds given do go back into the channel, whether that be to purchase gear to review or to purchase gear to use to compare or to make the videos, or for beverages like coffee to drink while I'm doing the review. There are several ways that you can support the channel. You can support it on a one-time gift through PayPal or Venmo, or you can do Patreon and YouTube memberships on a monthly basis. If you're interested, check out the links down below. While you're down there, don't forget to give a thumbs up to the video or a thumbs down to the video, and also hit that notification bell. That way you'll know the next time an honest audiophile video is uploaded. Okay, so how do the Hidizs MS5 sound? The Hidizs MS5 bass is very fun and engaging. It has a lot of impact, a lot of slam, and it has good punch, nice texture, extends well into the sub bass, and you just get a nice rumble and grumble, and there's a nice amount of just funness. Upper bass does bleed a little bit into the lower mids, which adds in some body and warmth to it, but overall the bass is well controlled, has good details and resolution, and nice tone and timbre, and it's just fun sounding. The mids of the Hidizs MS5 are nicely toned, timbre, good details and resolution, enough space to keep things separated and to be able to follow instruments and vocalists. And overall, it has a nice, just pleasurable approach. There's a little bit warm sounding, and it has a little bit of thickness to it. Upper mids are a little bit more elevated, and depending on what filters you're using, you'll either be a little bit more mellow or a little bit more elevated. And I found that with the treble filters, they can get a little bit too shouty and a little bit too forward and a little too intense. And with the bass filter, it was just a little bit too mellow for my preference. So I went with the balanced filter. Found on the treble, the lower treble is a little bit elevated and a little bit tipped, just like the upper mids. And that with the wrong filter, it can be a little too much and a little excessive, and can be a little bit zingy and a little too much for my taste. Bass filter will tame that down and kind of mellow it out and give it a little bit laid back approach. And then the balanced one is somewhere in between there. The treble has nice extension to it. It has nice amount of air, good amount of energy and sparkle. And overall, it's just a very pleasing and non-fatiguing listen. At times, it can be a little bit iffy, but for the most part, I found that the Hidizs MS5 is just a very pleasurable, fun listen. It's not a reference sound, but overall, it's just a fun, engaging listen. Detail retrieval and resolution of the MS5 is good. It's not a very forgiving IEM of poorly recorded tracks or badly mastered tracks. It will reveal that, and you'll know it. It does a good job of giving you all the details that you need without being excessive, and it resolves them all very well. Tone and timbre sounds good and very natural and accurate. The Sonion BAs for the mids and treble do a very good job of keeping things on a natural level and just sounding accurate to their real life counterparts. And then the dynamic bass really drives things home and has nice tone and timbre. Soundstage of the MS5 is very nice. You have a fairly wide sound signature that is accurate to the source of the material, whether you're in a studio or you're in a stadium or some other sort of recording, the MS5 is going to kind of let your imaginations run and decide whether or not, yeah, that sounds like I think that type of recording would sound. Imaging is good. You can track things across the stage and you can place them as they go and you can follow them along. Depth is good. Layering is very good, and things do not get muddled up and confused, except for when using the bass filters and listening to extremely bass heavy music. I did find that it got a little bit confused at times. So overall, I like the Hidizs MS5. This is a fun and engaging type of sound, something totally different. And you can choose what type of music you want to hear and how you want to hear it. It's kind of cool with the different filters and tips that you can use. How does it compare to a couple other IEMs, similar price points? First up, we have the JQ4U Pro. Now, the JQ4U Pro is a little bit cheaper than the Hidizs MS5, and it has a totally different type of presentation, even though it has a one dynamic 4BA, just like the MS5. The JQ4U Pro is very neutral and natural. It is more balanced across and very much more cohesive. It has a slightly better tone and timbre and a little bit more accurate. Does not have near the bass impact that the MS5 has, but it has more balanced and cohesive mids, and it has a better, more accurate soundstage, a little bit better depth and layering. It does not get confused on busier tracks. Overall, the JQ4U Pro is a more neutral and natural presentation, but is more analytical. Lacks a little bit of that fun factor that the MS5 has. And then next we have the AFUL Performer 5. Now, the AFUL Performer 5 is not going to have quite as much of the bass impact and slam that the MS5 has. The Performer 5 will be a little bit more mid-bass focused than the MS5, and the mids of the Performer 5 are a little bit more forward and a little bit more full sounding. They aren't as tipped in the upper mids and in the treble, but the treble is more extended, and overall the Performer 5 has about the same amount of detail retrieval and resolution. The Performer 5 does have a little bit better of a soundstage, a little bit more accurate, but is not quite as deep and as layered as the MS5. And I find that depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for something that's kind of like an all-arounder, listen to Performer 5, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit more fun and engaging and bassy and just, can just pound away on certain genres of music, the MS5. So I like the Hidizs MS5. It's a different type of IEM, and you can pretty much get any 3 different types of experiences that you want. Build is great. The design is cool. Fit and comfort is a little something to be desired. For me, might be different for you. I like a lot about it, but it's got a few little question marks. But overall, if you're looking for something different and unique, the Hidizs MS5. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen, subscription links and notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up and a thumbs down to the video. Also, check out the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact the channel, follow the channel, support the channel. All that kind of stuff is down below. And also, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.